How's it going, everyone? Panyo here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of After Dinner Mints. Before we begin, I just want to highly encourage everyone who's watching to join us in the Art Blocks Discord, which is where the entire community lives. I'm talking about collectors, artists, people who are interested in generative art. And so I encourage anyone who's interested listening in right now to check out our Art Blocks Discord. There will be a link to the Discord inside of this YouTube channel, so go ahead and check that out. And then people who are watching us right now, they'll be chatting inside of the Art Blocks Mints channel. So if you are watching this live right now, go ahead and check out the Art Blocks Mints channel. That's where everyone's gonna be discussing this episode. As usual, we'll have gas prices above me, which update every 10 to 15 seconds. And, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of our weekly show. And now I want to introduce our guest today. First off, we have Snowfro. He's a generative artist and founder of Art Blocks. We have Jessica Phifer. She has worked for Christie's auction house for 14 years, representing the Southwest region on behalf of the company internationally in all collecting categories that the house covered. She's currently doing some independent deals, advising, and fundraising. And then thirdly, we have Seth from Brightest Moments Gallery, also Brightest Moments DAO in Venice Beach, California. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started. We have a big and exciting show this evening. First guest tonight is Jessica Phifer. How are you doing tonight?
I'm grand. Happy to be here.
Thanks so
Am I
much.
muted?
No,
Good.
you're
Okay,
good. You're totally good.
Right on.
First off, I just want to thank you so much for being on tonight's discussion. Can you kick it off by just telling us a little bit about your background as it relates to the art world?
Sure. I got a degree in art history. My entire career has been in the art world, but also a great majority of like my social and civic life has been revolved around the arts. Like I sit on a lot of museum committees and so forth, and spend a lot of free time in museums. And in middle school, I used to ditch class to go hang out at the Manila Collection and the Rothko Chapel because they didn't know how to handle truants. So it goes way back. But my whole life revolves around the arts.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you remember specifically what got you into art? Was it like a specific artist? Was it a style of work, or maybe some family members that were also artists?
I was taken to museums a lot as a kid, so I could credit my mom for that. But definitely my dad, Russell Pfeiffer, he was I would call him an outsider artist. I use that term very, very loosely. It That term tends to be applied to like artists who kind of live on the fringes of society, maybe people with some mental health disabilities. That did not apply to my father. However, he was kind of a fringe cat. But I I call him an outsider artist because he was not classically trained. He was not making work that was like looking back at art history. He was in no way engaged in any like contemporary art making dialogues, but he just had this super acute urgency to make stuff, to just like make anything at all costs. It could be like copious portraits of me growing up or whatever. He just had to make, and there was no agenda to the work. Nothing was ever going to be sold. He just had to make stuff. And so I think because of him, I definitely have a great sensitivity to that creative urgency at all costs. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So you worked at Christie's for 14 years.
Yeah.
What was the typical process when it comes to selecting artists and pieces of work for Christie's?
So, I mean, the easiest way to answer this is probably depends on your vantage point within the machine, within the auction house machine. So, from my vantage point, from like a business development perspective, so I represented the Southwest, the entire Southwest, on behalf of the company internationally in all things that we sold. So, the way I would answer that is two tranches, one that's reactive and one that's proactive. On the reactive side, you're having to deal with the legions of inquiries that are coming in. There would be weeks of like hundreds of cold calls of people calling me out of the blue saying like, I've got a Ming Dynasty vase, or I've got a Rothko painting, or I've got, just, you got to like swim through the morass of oftentimes just like pure fake shit, but have, from an industrial perspective, enough of a good team in place of expertise to be able to dig through that and find the gems in there, right? So that's the reactive side of it. And the proactive side is, being close enough to those key collectors. And by being close to them, I mean knowing enough about the markets that are interesting to them that you can speak with some authority about those markets and get close to them that way, so that when the time comes that they're ready to sell, hopefully, there's enough of a relationship there that you've got a seat at the table, to talk to them about that. But to really answer your question, it's all just about following markets, right? And these
Mhm.
auction houses, they sell everything. But from a business development perspective, that was our angle.
Got it. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that. So how long does it typically take from when, pieces of art are selected to when they hit the actual auction block? Is it, something that happens within days, or I'm always curious how quickly, things transition.
This old broad is used to like the old way. So you know, we're talking about physical things on a very standard long set auctions calendar. I would say at a minimum, actually more like 3 months. 3 months would be a standard time from Masood calling me to say, I've got this thing, what do you think? To us then negotiating, agreeing, getting it, the physical object, to the sales center, be that New York or London or Dubai or whatever, prepping it for sale, doing the research, getting the catalog done, bringing it to sale. Usually in the old days with a physical object, that would,
Mhm.
yeah, be around 3 months. In y'all's space, it's a whole new world. I mean, it doesn't need to take that long. I think the timing that then is more contingent on when the sale needs to be set, and that is a function of a whole other slew of factors. But traditionally speaking, for a physical object, think around 3 months.
Gotcha. So now that you were talking about, I know you were talking about our space. What was your first experience with NFTs and crypto?
Um, I won't lie. I really didn't know a whole lot. I would hear about things like, I'd hear about like crypto kitties and stuff like that. I did not feel like that was a space for me. Something I'm happy to have since corrected. Uh, but I can really credit our friend Sarah Labowitz. Sarah and I were on one of our really long walks one day, and she's telling me about her boyfriend, your friend and colleague, Peter Mollick's affection for his buddy Eric, and what they're doing at Art Blocks. And I was totally like, I was completely wrapped. The generative art angle, the smart contracts angle, I was totally intrigued. And I started doing a little research. I didn't expect I don't need to feel fluent necessarily, and I never will be. I don't even know that I know like basic like greetings in your language, but it is essential clearly that one needs to at least accept this is the future. And I'm really interested in what Eric's doing, and yeah, so that's my background there.
Cool. No, I think it's fair to everyone. Be honest. We all started. We learned different ways that, how we learned about generative art, and so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So how do you or others at auction houses? How did you evaluate the value of a piece of art? Is it mainly on aesthetics, or with a large focus on their prior work, or what played those factors?
So the easy answer is one that is not unique to us, the fine art auction world. That's just comps, right? Like you want to find enough historical sale examples that are as close as possible to the object you're dealing with, and come to about a rough average. And you want to err on the conservative side to set the sale estimate to be appealing. But you really just base it on comps. A more nuanced answer is that there is a more particular criteria at the really serious end of the fine art auction world. And the easiest way is just work through the sort of like top 5 of them. So among this criteria, first would be rarity. No surprise. In most cases, the more rare a thing is, the greater its value. However, there actually are some really interesting art historical precedents whereby rarity does not imbue greater value, but I won't take up too much time there. So rarity is definitely one. Uh, Provenance, the life story of the thing prior to its sale date. I know you guys are very interested in that stuff as well.
Mhm.
From our perspective, it's more a good provenance is more, has it been in a major museum exhibition? Did it used to belong to a serious heavyweight collector? Is this piece included in the artist's catalog raisonné? So all of that definitely builds up the value if the provenance is strong. Um, Another key criteria, which I think is really interesting, would be condition. And condition doesn't really apply in this space, so which is a shame because I think it's a terribly interesting thing. Condition issues really vary according to the collecting category you're talking about. So, for example, in modern pictures, let's say, in the early part of the 20th century, there was some really bad art conservation going on, and a lot of great pictures were really poorly relined. Well, that affects their value. Conversely, in the, say, collecting category of like early American decorative arts, they want no restoration. They want that Philadelphia tilt-top tea table to be like covered in grime and have nothing new attached to it because they want the thing to be as close to its early essential self. So depending on what the category is, the state of condition can have a really peculiar impact on value. Um, Fashion is obviously important. When a thing is in fashion, whether or not it's in fashion, like you take, say, Renoir as an example. He's one of the most important painters, not only of the Impressionist era, but of all time, just objectively speaking. But it's not particularly in fashion right now, like saccharine pictures of chubby babies, like just dripping with sugar. Like it's not in fashion. So while the thing is objectively valuable because it's by an important artist, it's not really in fashion right now. So the auction houses, while they'd be happy to sell one if the seller really needs to, the specialists aren't beating the door down to sell that thing. And so that's a key one. And then freshness to market. If a picture has been quietly, lovingly held in one collection for a really long time, hasn't been shopped around, hasn't been moving around, and it suddenly emerges, you cannot evaluate the value that can come with something fresh to market. So it's a long way of saying it's comps, but
It's very
there are other
complex.
peculiarities too. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious now, when you're talking about whether it's in fashion or not, is that something that fluctuates on a monthly or yearly or decade, or is it just like who decides that if it's in fashion or not?
Who decides that? That is the perennial question. Who decides where those winds blow? There's so many things. There's so many sociopolitical things. Oh God, that's a show unto itself, dude. Like, for example, the post-impressionist market has never come back from the Japanese bubble in the 80s. And that was just a bubble. It was just an economic bubble. So but it had an impact on fashion. Right now, we're seeing tremendous interest in artists, in figurative artists by artists of color, and and women. Is that due to our current political and social climate? Maybe it's that's a really, I would love to tease that question apart. I don't know that my head won't explode if we do it in the next like 2 minutes.
No,
But
that's totally fair. I
it's
had to ask, so that's
I
all.
know, I love that you did. Please have me back and let's spend like hours hashing
Okay.
it out.
I'll hold you to that. So what's the current feeling you get from people in the traditional art world when they hear about NFTs from you or from other people?
So
You can be honest with us,
yeah, I would want to be no other way. Um, so a few weeks back, I was talking to this collector. She is the most astute, like deeply studied, just like fiercely intelligent collector, and has just impeccable taste. And she's been collecting for decades. She's a goddess, and she's a really quite advanced in age. But she keeps up, like she's on top of things. And so I felt comfortable asking her if she was following any of this NFT stuff, and she's like, ah, you could just see her like physically like get into knots. And she's like, I mean, I am, and I'm struggling with it, and where does it begin? And then so you could see her consternation. However, at the end of that, she says, but you know what? I'm clearly just gonna have to find someone to explain it to me, which was so cool. Like that's a true collector, not to mention a truly like intellectually engaged and curious person. She recognized that like while it might be foreign to her, there's no getting around it. It's happening. And my job as a collector is to get out in front of this and learn about it. Now she's the exception. I don't want to bring any bummer energy here, but I've talked to a lot of traditional collectors about this. I don't mean traditional, these aren't traditional people. They're they're politically maybe even pretty fringe. They're total oddities. They're people who've spent outsized amounts of their personal wealth on stuff that is utterly non-essential. These are like they're very intelligent people too. Like so they're not traditional people, but they seem to be currently kind of traditional when it comes to this. I think there's a little bit of education still to be done,
Oh
but
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but I do think they'll get there.
And what do you think is the reason why people are interested in this? Is it, the secondary sale potential when it comes to smart contracts, or is it just knowing that there's a new wave of art that is, here to stay, whether, they know about it or not?
I think actually the smart contracts is really the angle from like an edification process from you guys who are out on the front lines trying to teach people about it. That is the angle to push. Especially if we're talking about super contemporary, like even like blue chip contemporary art collectors. That is a major concern right now of artists wanting greater agency and more control the over their work. I mean, the art market is so frothy right now, and it's just wild the money made by the wrong people. You know, the artists aren't the ones making it.
Hmm.
So I think to lead with that is something I would heartily advise. And I think that actually, what I've talked to folks, that is the hook so far that they can kind of that can bring them in. So I would advance with that.
Gotcha. Okay, I,
Yeah.
I I completely agree. I think smart contracts are whenever I talk to friends and family, it clicks instantly for them because you just make examples and they're like, oh, so you get secondary sales all the time. I think that's huge for artists.
Well, and you know the Sigla Prjansky project, right?
I don't know if you could fill me in. I'd be happy to listen to.
You guys should look this up. So because there's an art historical precedent for this very conversation. Pretty much everything that we're doing now, like to some weird degree, kind of goes back to the 70s. So 1971, this conceptual artist, Seth Sieglob, reaches out to this attorney, Robert Pujansky, and they produce, and I forget the name of it. It was like artist resale right. I'm going to butcher it. I forget the name of it, but they built this contract to allow artists to have greater control over their resale rights, and also just the physical fate of the thing. And and so while it was meant to be an actual workable contract, it also was supposed to serve as a kind of as a conceptual artwork, which it did. It only did the latter, however, because collectors really pushed back on this, and so it never really had much success as a real binding agreement. So that's where I think again you guys can really make some really lasting waves. For you all, it's just sort of like de facto, it's just baked in. it's like it's just a part of the culture. I think once that starts to seep into the more traditional corners of the art world, then the notion that it's just a de facto agreement, you won't have as much pushback. So that's really exciting to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. So, to you, what is more important when you look at art? Is it the original artwork or the artist's intention?
Um, I'm not gonna punt, but I want to say both. I mean, so I want the latter, the intent, to be such a compelling premise that I'm drawn enough in that I then want to witness the artist like wrestle with what is a most adequate way to convey that in the final result of the artwork. Does that make sense? Like,
Hmm.
meaning I want both. I want, if I just wanted a gratifying intention, gratifying conversation, I could call up a smart friend and have one. I want the intention to be compelling. I want it to address things that matter to me. Things that question our language, our shared history, or whatever. But then to see how an artist sort of labors with great intention over the rhyme and reason behind the media they choose to manifest that material result. Does that make
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
does that make
that
sense?
makes,
That like
yeah, absolutely.
it's you need the intention to be compelling, but I want to understand why the media chosen and that is fleshes that out, if that makes if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So like that's why just an objectively pretty thing, if there's no there, it means nothing to me. That's also why, if the intent is really compelling, but the intent requires that the media used be really challenging, or might even result in a really ugly thing. If that meets the intention and argument properly, then it's a great. Piero Manzoni, also in the 70s, brilliant artist. He canned his own shit. He canned his own shit and sold it as art, successfully sold it as art. I mean, we're talking like six figures too. Like, and that he found the right media to match his argument. And this was the only way to properly manifest that argument. And so that to me is a successful work of art.
gotcha. Okay.
You're never going to have me on here again. I know.
No, this is fantastic. I appreciate you being on. These are just like questions that I just came up with, and I think it's important. Everyone in our community I know was incredibly excited to have you on, and I still have a bunch more questions, by the way.
Okay, good.
Um, so, how do you think art galleries and museums will adapt to the rise of NFTs? Do you think you will start seeing a lot more of NFTs, in the traditional art galleries and museums, or what's your take on that?
I think, and again, this is all quite new, so I'm happy to be proven wrong. But I think in the art world, it tends to be so. It's not surprising that the larger art world's engagement with NFTs to date has been the way it has been, which is major auction houses first. Your smaller auction houses that are more more in your universe, and now Christie's and Sotheby's, and I think Phillips too. Um, Auction houses are total shameless mercenaries. And I say this as a veteran of one. So if there's enough money on the table, they're going to be first, but they don't have any real critical stake, right? What's really essential next in the chain of being critically received in the art world is serious, like enough galleries that are really critically important and have good reputations, taking this space really seriously and showing the community that they're going to invest in seeing whether or not their artists are interested in exploring this. And if they aren't, but the gallery is still interested, what are they going to do to find artists in this space and really care for them and give them the platform they need? That's got to happen, and that's got to take some time. It's the gallery space that's the really critical space. You got to give that some time, and then the museums will follow. Then the institutions follow. And once that happens, once you've got like real legit exhibitions around this stuff, then you're in the canon and no one can say shit about your legitimacy. It's done. But it takes some time. It's a process, and you need some time with the galleries to intellectually get on board. And you don't want it to happen in any other order. You don't want some museum to like put on some NFT show just because we ought to, because there's enough of this stuff going around and people are talking about it. And we want to get, we want to get clicks. Like, you want an exhibition to happen because there's enough good, critically good and varied material out there for them to really evaluate it and take it seriously. So you guys are on the ascent. It's going in the right direction, but it's a process.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think it's important that I know a lot of people are like, well, when are we doing this museum and this guy? It's just like I think it's important that it doesn't happen too fast, probably, because if it happens too
Amen.
fast, then it's not gonna you're not gonna be able to pick up a lot of other people along the way. If it just goes one from to the next. So
Well, and then it will look like it's just responding to market froth, which is the last thing you want.
mhm.
You want to have enough time that people of cooler heads have really given this time and consideration, and the people who have been deemed by our institutions as the experts on fine art made of our time can say, no, I'm not responding to markets. I'm responding to a lot of good material that's happening. We can't deny it. So we got to put a show together, but you've got to give it some time kind of baking at the primary market level first.
Cool. Yeah, I completely agree. What do you think is the biggest advantage that auction houses see dealing with digital NFTs as opposed to the more traditional physical art?
Like, cost savings, oh my God, do you know how
Yeah.
insanely it's so expensive to schlep around these major sale highlights from all over the world, which you have to do before the big auctions. It's really onerous and really really expensive, but there's no getting around it. So that's an obvious sort of like easy answer. um the real reason though is that it's not often that these auction houses suddenly are introduced to like a whole new cache of people and a new market of undeniable wealth, but also a whole new universe of people who are also freaks like us who collect irrationally. Like, that's just the auction houses are not going anywhere. I think they're all in on this. It's a dream for them.
No, I love it. Let me see. Do you think we will see another major auction house pop up that will compete with, Sotheby's, Christie's, and Phillips? One that will that will focus solely on NFTs. Do you think that's a possibility, or do you think it'll just be, those three major auction houses that will still kind of want to maintain a slice of that market?
I mean, I don't see why not. Um, I I think it would be wise for that to happen once there's a little bit, excuse me, a little bit more, like I was saying earlier, sort of like more critically, critically vetted material for them to offer. I think you need a little bit more time with, like, look at what Pace is doing. They've got Urs Fisher's show up right now. Sagwo Chong just launched an NFT. Damien Hirst, obviously, there's no escaping him. But like, I think you need a little bit more of that to happen before another auction house that you could actually consider a real rival makes much sense. But I don't see that. All that said, I see absolutely no reason why not. I think, frankly, that's kind of probably already in the works, very much in the
Cool.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'll. I think it's only just a matter of time before
Oh
something
yeah.
like that pops up. So I'm curious now. When you deal with a lot of this like more traditional physical art, how do you know that something is legit, that it's like real? And I think with NFTs, it's easy for us to know where it came from because it's with the signed contracts and like the provenance, it's like easy to identify. But with the physical art, there's a lot of fake stuff. I think that's out there. Has it happened before? And in addition, has it happened before where, Christie's or Sotheby's has like put something on the auction block where it's been fake?
I mean, thankfully I don't work there anymore, so you can't like capture me into be like, you wouldn't believe how many times. No, but I mean, no, there are not to punt, but it so depends on the collecting category you're talking about, because each space has its own sort of way to evaluate that. In some cases, you've got to rely on independent experts that are just deemed by the market to be the go-to to confirm whether or not a thing is right or not. It really depends on the artist. It depends on the collecting category. Like, say, for example, if you're dealing with a Giacometti, we won't, if you, Masood, come to me and say, I've got this Giacometti, I want to sell it. Great. Well, has it been vetted by the foundation? Masood says, no, it hasn't been. Well, Masood, I hate to break it to you, but I've got to go to the foundation, have them vet this piece, and they maintain the right to destroy the piece if they feel it isn't right. But I cannot, as Christie's, present this on the open market unless I can say they vetted it. So depending on the artist, each case has its own degree of strictures. But I mean, the shorter answer is, depending on what collecting category you're in, you train yourself any number of ways to be able to look out for stuff. And when you've trafficked in enough objects over so many years, you start to just be able to detect a good artist's hand. Yeah, that's really, I'm not kicking the can down the road. It just really depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about old masters, that's one thing. If we're talking about, antiquities, that's a totally different thing too. If we're talking about modern artwork, it totally changes because there's a whole new industry built around it, around confirming its authenticity. So it's a sticky wicket. Pick a thing and I can tell you.
So is it something where, if someone calls you, they're like, hey, I got, this specific piece, do you or like somebody else go to that, city or country and you check it out, or do they mail it to you? Like, how does that work out?
I have met people in the strangest of locations to look at stuff. You wouldn't believe it. Depending on the level of intrigue and how that level of intrigue intersects with the viability of it actually being right and or possibly like really going to come to sale, you'll absolutely hop on a plane, or you'll just wait for them to give you enough information and hopefully you can work it out remotely. But yeah, I mean, I've met people at truck stops between like this weird corner of Texas and wherever they're coming from far west to like look at a little cache of loose diamonds. It depends on the circumstance.
Yeah.
But yeah, ideally you would go see the thing in person and get to sort of feel its energy, and so much can be received so differently in person than remotely. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then how are estimates made on original, like one-of-one pieces of art when it's brought to an auction house?
Again, quick and easy is I would just say comps, but again, it's about, is the thing, those are that earlier criteria, like how in fashion is it? Is it what's the state of the thing? What's the market for this stuff? But you tend to, the easy answer is look at those comps and come up with, a more conservative low and high estimate. The more conservative side of things would be how you would approach an auction estimate. But
Okay.
you apply that criteria we talked about earlier.
Okay. I appreciate that. Well, I want to ask Eric. I don't know if you have any questions. So Eric knows Jessica. That's how I was able to put this together. So yeah, Snowfro, do you have anything that you would want to add to the questions I've asked Jessica so far?
Well, I mean, first of all, I got a text from Pete right after that walk that you had with Sarah. So it was pretty cool that's kind of how this is even coming together. I have a million questions, especially because I've been reading books on the subjects of auction houses.
Oh no.
Or just in general, the contemporary art world, which is fascinating. And the idea of a branded artist and a branded gallery and a branded collector and all of this stuff. I guess I'd be curious, like, do you see? You mentioned I can't remember what the words you used exactly for an auction house, but do you see them as potentially kind of hurting the NFT space in any way at all, or are they just going to be one of the various components that people are going to find to sell? Like if they bring an artist to the NFT space, like is that looked down upon by the galleries, or what is what is going to be their position? And to follow that up, in a book that I just read called The $12 Million Stuffed Shark, which I've been telling people to read, I feel like, for weeks. It talks about how, in an auction house, the artist gives up 15% instead of 50% and might get a higher price because it's an auction and people have FOMO, and there's like a little bit of friction there with like the traditional gallery space. So I'm super curious, kind of like your thoughts, like, what,
Yeah.
It,
so in the traditional art space, so ordinarily you need to have enough of an auction record already for us to know how to sell you. So you don't just sidle up to Christie's or Sotheby's and say, yo, sell this. Like there needs to be either comps already that we can lean on, or there needs to be enough happening at the primary market level, which is why we have to rely on galleries. Like I was saying earlier, that's why they're so essential. There needs to be enough happening there that consigners, because their consigners are the ones that drive the owners of the objects, take the leap of putting it in an auction, and the auction house agrees to take that leap with them. Now, talk about the ethical implications of what you're asking. I think that is a really fraught ethical issue there, that in that instance, only the consignor is getting to benefit from this. And that, and they're frankly possibly even putting that artist's career at risk, because there's no telling necessarily how it'll do at auction, but that's a different conversation. But so you've got to have enough happening at the gallery level, the primary market level, to then warrant secondary market. This is such new territory for Christie's. It skipped that step entirely, because there was just so much money that there was just and the competition was clearly already going to be so fierce that they dove in and they're never going to go back. So how then does that address your concerns about what it might mean for the artist working with them directly? I think while you might be gaining control as a consigner, you're gaining control of the potential sale price, which is paramount. What also matters is the auction house is not doing anything in terms of cultivating your story and taking the time to really present you in a thoughtful way. They are a machine and they are churning through it, and they've just got to sell the known thing that they can sell well. A gallery is meant to really understand deeply what your intent as an artist is and build a serious language that they can relay to their clients, their collectors, to really establish like a long-term relationship with you. It's just a totally different level of investment. There's no investment from an auction house perspective in an artist. And I'm not saying this as my Stockholm syndrome from an auction house notwithstanding, like there's no greater education on earth than working for an auction house, but there's also no denying what their interests are. And if this is where the market is going, where artists are working directly with auction houses, that's all well and good, but I think it's going to mean auction houses change, and maybe there becomes a leg of it that becomes more curatorial and more resembles an actual gallery. But there are arguments against that because there are going to be lots of conflicts. So it's look, take pride in the fact that you are a part of a moment that is upending a lot of long-standing art world norms, and that is terribly interesting and exciting. But does that make sense? They're sort of they got different.
I mean, there's a couple of ways. First of all, I thought it was really curious how, of all the things that have been written about art blocks, I think that the Sotheby's text was maybe one of the most profound. Like, and granted, that was written by an artist, right? That was written by
exactly, and it was curated, and it was curated by someone in your universe too, not a specialist, right?
But I would say that, like, overall, I think that the effect that the Sotheby's auction has had on art blocks has been significant in a very, very positive way, right? And so, but yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. And then the other thing about what you're talking about, like, obviously NFTs are upending a lot of things. starting with fees. I mean, eventually, art blocks may not get to charge a fee. I guess eventually, like that's the whole point about NFTs and blockchain is like the reduction of fees. And
Yeah.
obviously, as we curate, there's some value to what we're putting out there. But the whole value proposition of you pay with a credit card, it's 3%. You pay with a blockchain, it's 0.01%. And that's kind of what the world is going towards with decentralized platforms. And I'm just kind of I'm curious to see how that's going to affect the artist gallery relationship, the artist auction house relationship. Like is
Yeah.
art blocks going to be the enemy of the gallerist? And is art blocks going to be the enemy of the auction house eventually? We don't want that. We want the gallerist to bring the artist to us and like have some kind of profit share with their artist using our technology. But yeah, it's hard to be like, hey, artist, you better bring your gallery with you. Like, don't.
No, I hear you. I would say currently, despite the art world especially in the auction house side of things, the competition is so fierce, so fierce. I mean, it's just I don't miss that at all. But if you get a little space from it, objectively speaking, no one really resents anyone. Everyone understands that each role is totally essential. It is auction houses and the outreach that they've got, the what they can the high profile nature of them, what they can do for an artist's career, galleries absolutely lean on and need and deeply respect. And auction houses need all the work and intellectual and emotional heft that galleries have put in to get those artists to that space, and auction houses respect that. And all of us lean on museums to be the critical resource to confirm what is good and not. Everyone, the ecosystem, I wouldn't worry too much about resentment. I think everyone understands how we need one another. And you really made a very good point that I don't want to not adequately appreciate that sort of like direct to buyer, what you experienced with Sotheby's and the access that gave you. That is tremendous, and that's tremendous. But there's also other stuff that the art world can provide that an auction house can't, I guess is what I'm saying.
Thank
Well,
you.
I have 2 questions that I want to ask from the community. I don't know if you had anything else, Snowfro, before I jump in. Okay.
I mean, yes, I have a lot more, but we don't have enough hours in the day. So
I agree.
we'll have a beer at El Cosmico, Jess.
Yay, yes.
So Jessica, you mentioned earlier the story of the older collector who wanted to learn about, NFT, smart contracts, all that. What can help bridge the gap for traditional collectors to understand what's going on at art blocks?
I mean, I'd hate to say like even more didactics. Like this feels like it's like a space race right now. Like these auction houses are out panel discussion one another on this stuff. And I don't know that adding to that is all that helpful, but they do just need a basic primer on what the hell you guys are up to. And I think they would most appreciate getting that from a neutral, non-transactional space, like a museum or a fine art nonprofit. I think that's an angle to consider. But I think also when there's more kinds of art for them to consider, the better. I think currently there is a kind of aesthetic that is maybe not what a lot of traditional art collectors are really gonna jive with, if I can say that any more delicately. So I think while we're, seeing more and more existing traditional artists enter this space, you'll see the collectors follow. And then, like I was saying earlier, and more galleries will get involved, and eventually more institutions will get involved. So I wouldn't rush to try and get people to understand this. I think it's taking a natural course that it ought to.
Got it. Okay.
Does that sound like I'm not answering? I really don't mean to not answer.
No, that's perfectly fine. I appreciate it. And then the next question is, are the institutions recruiting tech teams who understand, the NFT crypto art market, or are they repurposing traditional talent to understand this market?
Hmm. I think it depends on the ones that it depends on the institution. I bet you've got lots of very progressive, forward-thinking contemporary museums, especially ones that they don't collect, if they're like non-collecting museums, that are definitely getting out ahead of this and are definitely bringing tech-savvy people on to explain this to them and to their trustees and to their patrons. Um, I don't want to out any other museums, but I mean, I know of plenty that are more comprehensive encyclopedic museums that are not, they're nowhere near that yet. No, not at all, which is perfectly fine. They'll get there. But repeat the second part of that question because I don't know that I followed it, and I want to.
So the first question was: are the institutions recruiting tech teams who understand the NFT crypto art market, or are they repurposing traditional talent to understand this market?
That's an interesting question. I bet most of them probably at best are relying on, like, the old big stodgy institutions are probably relying on like their youngest intern to, like bring them up to speed and tell them what the hell is going on. But I think there is some stuff happening, like Eric, what the Cam was doing, they've got an NFT project going. I don't think they're gonna go so far as to invest in, really hiring new staff for that necessarily, but they're definitely not so um, you know, dismissive as to think that they could just like have their existing teams sort of figure this new space out for them. Like they're gonna lean on existing experts for that.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers the question. It's a peculiar, and I like the question. I don't know that I
Yeah, it's
answered
it's,
it
it's
that
definitely
way.
complex. I mean, and I think it's also something where I think over time that's going to change. I think what you said is
Absolutely.
probably correct. Where they ask some of their younger, interns are like, "Hey, so
Yeah,
what's this all about? Can you teach us?" And maybe they give them a 5 minute, spiel of what's going on.
exactly.
So
Exactly. But then as this continues to grow, then they're going to realize they have to, this is really is exactly where it needs to be. It's a process.
yeah, I completely agree. And then the final question, which is something we typically ask most everyone, is: do you prefer coffee or tea?
Oh God, coffee. Jesus.
Coffee. Okay. Well,
Sorry
perfect.
to have
Well,
such a visceral
no,
reaction.
no, that's fine. Jessica, thank you so much for being on tonight. I know we could talk to you for probably hours on end. I would actually love to invite you back another time. Maybe because I feel like Art Blocks is still very young. Been around. I mean, Art Blocks has been around what, 7 months. So maybe 7 months from now, we can like have you come back in and get like an update and see how things have kind of changed in the traditional art space and how people are accepting NFTs.
I would love nothing more. I'm happy to be here now and would love to come back. Thank you guys so
Excellent.
much. Enjoyed
Thank you
it.
so much. Well, up next we have Seth. Seth is the co-founder of Brightest Moments DAO and the Brightest Moments Gallery Space, which is in Venice Beach, California. How's it going, Seth? I think you might be muted right now. Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, hold on. I'll show you a message real quick. Hold on. We'll get it figured out. I just sent you a message. If everyone is listening, if you guys just wait a few minutes, we'll go ahead and try to figure out this technical difficulty. And then I can talk for a minute. That's fine. Okay, well, we're going to have Seth rejoin back in. So if you just give us a few moments. In the meantime, there is something new I would love to bring, to this weekly After Dinner Mints. It's called Love to See It, Highlights of the Week, where basically I'm going to highlight a couple of the positive things that have been going on in the community. And I would love for people to, DM me as the week progresses if they see anything that someone's doing that's worthy of giving a shout out, then just DM me and I'd love to, just bring it to everyone's attention. So first one is from username MW. They said, I don't have a specific moment, but I would love to say D. Bachman has been exceptionally kind and supportive in education and community. So thank you, D. Bachman. The next, I'll bring you in just a moment. I'm going to finish up a couple of these highlights of the week, and we'll get you right back in and get you going, Seth. The next one we have is with username Tony Marinera. They said Tony was looking to pick up, I guess, their first Squiggle. So the username Proper Market bought one of their operas, which allowed Tony Marinera to grab their first Chromie Squiggle. So shout out to Proper from Tony Marinera. And then lastly, this one is from D. Bachman. It was basically just going over the events with the Fidenza sale earlier this week. It's so Superpot Secret accidentally listed their Fidenza for 5 instead of 50 ETH, which was immediately sold to Jolly Time. Jolly Time purchased the Fidenza while on a work call, and I guess they noticed that it was a fat finger listing, so they quickly returned it back to the original owner, which is incredible. Obviously they didn't have to do that, and I think it's just something that highlights how cool and amazing our community is. So thank you to everyone in the community, and if anyone has any other, highlights from the week, feel free to DM me, and we'll highlight it on next week's After Dinner Mints. But for now, we're going to go ahead and tune back in with Seth from Brightest Moments Gallery in Dow. How are you doing?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay,
I
good.
appreciate it. How's it
Bright
going?
Moments. Bright Moments
Bright
Gallery
Moment Gallery. Okay, apologies.
in Venice.
In Venice Beach.
NFT Gallery Dow.
Excellent. Well, how did you first learn about, NFTs and crypto?
So I've been a technology entrepreneur, an artist for years, and I'd say back in 2017, 2016, just seeing what was happening with whatever wave that was of crypto, with the rise of Ethereum, with the beginning of CryptoKitties, and then we had I helped build a blockchain community center in North Beach, San Francisco. And so obviously at that point, nothing really came of NFTs the way it has now. But when this next wave hit in February of this year, January, February, on the heels of NBA Top Shot in November, I think the saying is, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So it was just obvious that there was a new file format, and that's how we think of it, just like JPEGs or MP3s or PDFs, that this is a file format that was a huge creative unlock that has ownership attached to it. And so obviously the art world is going to probably be one of the first ones to benefit from it, but the sense is it's going to really cover a lot of different verticals over time.
Excellent. And then, so Bright Moments is a gallery DAO. Can you explain what a DAO is, how it works, and then, how it works with regards to Bright Moments? I think, there you go.
So when we created the gallery when this sort of NFT moment opened up in February, we were all in the pandemic and quarantine, obviously. A lot of us in the Venice Beach communities would go to Minotti's coffee shop. So you mentioned coffee before. Coffee is a great equalizer. We all came out for coffee. And that's where a lot of the people met. And the idea was to, when the pandemic opened things up, when it was over, when it was subsiding, that we had all these NFTs that were on all these platforms that were available. And so all we really needed was some monitors and some Wi-Fi, and we could show any NFT we wanted in a social setting. And so instead of all of us behind our screens or behind our computers, it just felt like the right thing to aspire to, is having a creative social space. It's on Windward Ave. It's right by the Venice sign. So it's halfway between Abbot Kinney and the Venice Boardwalk. I used to joke that it's like Coney Island meets Hauser and Wirth, right? So there's a lot of energy on the boardwalk in Venice that probably loves certain kinds of collectibles and certain kinds of, NBA highlights, but then there's also a lot of more sophisticated collectors and creators in and around Venice that would come as well. And so we got some keys, and we opened up our doors in April, and our first show was Jeff Davis's Portal show. And I have some footage when I can share my screen in a little bit. Um, and in terms of the structure, above and beyond simply doing an NFT gallery, um, I've started and built traditional technology venture kinds of companies for 20 years, LLCs and C corps. And I really felt that to do justice to this vision for a network of NFT galleries, we should be crypto native ourselves. And so we organized ourselves as an on-chain LLC in Wyoming. And we issued 10 million BRT tokens. And those are the same tokens that you need to run the ArtBlocks project for the CryptoVenetians, is also our governance tokens for us as a DAO.
Excellent. And then, so now going back to the, the crypto Venetians and the token, was there an art blocks project or another, generative art project that you connected with, which sparked the idea for crypto Venetians?
Yeah, so there were a couple. I mean, one of our members of the DAO is Jason Ting, who's done some great work, on art
curated
blocks.
artist,
Exactly. And so I think through that initially, and I just love Jeff Davis's work. And so when I reached out to Jeff and we started to work to exhibiting his work in May, at the same time, I think we thought about what could we do during the daytime, knowing that art openings could attract crowds at night. What could we do during the daytime to bring people through? And we thought, well, what if we minted our own collection of NFTs, and instead of selling them and requiring people to kind of add that cognitive load, why not give them away for free to people that come to the gallery to drive foot traffic?
Excellent.
And so we thought, well, we'll mint 10,000, or we'll mint 1,000 crypto Venetians and do 10 a day. And so when I was talking that through, I think it was early June or late May with Jeff, and he said, talk to Eric. And I talked to Jess Sloss, who's part of our DAO as well. He said, well, we could do that on art blocks. We could do a generative project where every single one of these 1,000 were generative artworks, were different, provably different and unique as one-of-one NFTs. And so we went in that direction, and it's worked out really well.
That's great. Yeah, I think the project is beautiful. It's cool seeing it, in the Art Block mints page, because like you said, we'll only see, 10 or so mints per day. And so this is going over the course of the summer. Is that correct?
So initially it was just first come, first serve. Just show up between 3 and 5 because we wanted to get some people to show up. And then next thing, we had to use a Google form. And then last week or the week before, we put in place Square appointments. And then before we knew it, we're booked through the rest of the summer, all appointments, and we have a 200-person waiting list.
Wow.
There's a fabulous kind of intersection of local Venice characters and visitors and people in the Venice crypto community and artists that are coming through to get theirs, as well as very hardcore art blocks collectors who have one of every project and want Project 95. And what's wonderful and somewhat democratizing, I think, in terms of what we're doing, is it's not a function of how much money you have or how much ETH you have.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much ETH you have, you can't mint one of these unless you're there in person, right? And so there's sort of two online NFT experiences that I think we're realizing in the physical world. One is the auction, right? The 24-hour auction on Foundation or anywhere else, where, for Jeff's show, we had the show occur at the end of a 3-day auction on OpenSea. So the last hour of the auction, where, for the last year and a half, we've been behind our screens bidding on things with that kind of FOMO, we actually are doing in person now, right? And we're seeing that. We have a leaderboard, and you can see which NFTs are being sold, are listed for what. And if there's a bid within the last 15 minutes, it extends another 15 minutes. So I think we're bringing that to life. And then the minting, as it relates to art blocks, instead of being at home alone and minting and loving or not loving which one you just minted, we're doing it socially in the real world. Um, in the case of the Crypto Venetians, increasingly we're turning it into a kind of crypto gender reveal theater where people choose their walk-on song and they come out and they see their Crypto Venetian revealed on the screen, um, because it's that magic moment of minting where we want to make you feel attached as much as possible, to this generative artwork, to this avatar that's just been created randomly. We have a great video that we show people before we help them open up their MetaMask wallets. We airdrop them BRT tokens, which then they redeem, which then they send to Art Blocks to open up the project and mint their Crypto Venetian. But I think this idea of um, creating a kind of theater experience around the live minting is really powerful, and it elevates. I think it allows us to connect more emotionally with these artworks as opposed to thinking about them as commodities that are bought and sold and flipped.
Definitely. So how does it work then? I'm assuming that there are some people that, come to the gallery and they are, on this list to get a Crypto Venetian, but they have no idea like what a MetaMask wallet is. Is that something you guys provide, like a paper wallet, or how does it, do you have to educate them? Can you just kind of run through those steps with us?
Yeah, so I joke that we're like a retail crypto bank disguised as a NFT art gallery, because really what we're doing every day is, even for people that own cryptocurrency, they own Bitcoin, they own Ethereum, doesn't mean they're comfortable or familiar with sending it to other wallets or sending it to a smart contract or paying gas fees.
Mhm.
Obviously, this audience here knows gas fees only too well, and it's a super elite power user audience, and we get probably 20-30% of the people that come through every day to mint their Crypto Venetian, um, are longtime Art Blocks holders and know exactly what they're doing and have a laptop and are ready to go. There are other people that are NFT curious or crypto curious, where we are really helping them open up this new kind of credit card, right? And the way we describe, I think, an Ethereum wallet, it is like a credit card that allows you to do business in this Web3 world,
Mhm.
right? It's the native credit card for NFTs. And
Yeah.
so we walk people through: download MetaMask, we airdrop them tokens, which they can only get there physically in the gallery. We've experimented with paper wallets, with a 12-word seed phrase that is closed in an envelope that's embossed with wax, and you open it up and don't lose this. It's your digital soul.
Yeah.
So we try to very quickly educate them through um, how crypto works, how Ethereum wallets work, what a private key is, and then we give them 10 BRT tokens, which they send to the Art Blocks contract, and then they have to PYOG, which is pay their own gas.
Mhm.
In some cases, if they don't have ETH in their wallet, we'll send them ETH, and they'll Venmo us back.
Oh
So
wow,
we're
that's
like
awesome.
a currency broker in some fourth world country. Um, but it's been a lot of fun, and I think when we get through that, even for the jaded, not cynical, but the jaded Art Blocks collectors who don't want to wait for the riffraff to figure out what MetaMask is, um, by and large, people are having a lot of fun, and we are, our version of KYCAML is tagging you on Instagram with your handle and a picture of your Crypto Venetian, right? So that if you do sell it, we're sad because you're
Yeah.
no longer part of the family, that there's some switching costs there. um I think, just jumping, so the project is going great. There's a ton of demand for it. I think even though we are doing these for free, we have more and more people like Mato, who did the Enzo series, flew in from North Carolina. We have more and more people flying in,
That's awesome.
so we have to take it much more seriously because people are planning trips around this, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Do you mind sharing a couple of this? I know we have to patch you in with your shared screen, So let me know when you have that popped up, and we'll get
Here we go.
Luke. Yeah, I'd love to see. I know some people don't know much about CryptoVenetians or what it looks like. All right, well, if you give us one moment, I'll let you know once we get that patched in. Cool. And
You
yep,
got it?
give us once. There you go. There you go. Got
There
it.
you go. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through here. So these are CryptoVenetians. There's 4 different backgrounds. There are 200,000 different possibilities in terms of hair and features. And so these are the mints from CryptoVenetian 0. 118. You can see we're now during the daytime. You can imagine at or around mint number 500, it might change to the next time of day. I have tuxedos and the Daft Punk hats. And just to give you a sense of kind of what it looks like, can you see this video?
Yep. Might be a little choppy, but yeah, we can see it. That's kind of the reveal right there of like when they first see
Yeah,
their
so
their
people,
crypto.
basically get to see themselves, and that's the kind of
That's awesome. Yeah, it seems like you guys really, thought this through about like you want it to be an experience. You're not just showing up and getting a mint. It's like this is going to be, I love the music and the kind of the reveal. I think that's such a cool way for people to see their mint. I think that's fantastic.
A couple things are happening now. Is I think we're basically sold out, or all the reservations are booked through the rest of the summer. We have a waiting list of about 200 people, so that's wonderful. We're now thinking about doing a series of crypto New Yorkers
Oh, cool.
in the fall, a 100-day pop-up in Manhattan with crypto New Yorkers, with 1,000 crypto New Yorkers, and we're now thinking about ways of potentially even creating tickets or NFTs that would guarantee somebody a spot in line in the future.
Hmm.
And we're also talking with other Art Blocks artists like Aaron Penny, who's been by a couple of times, about
Nice.
how do we apply this special experience of an IRL social minting to an Art Blocks drop, where it's not an avatar collection like we're doing with the CryptoVenetians, but instead it's come physically to a gallery space and have a more intentional experience around your minting, with or without the artist. So that we're thinking in September to do a show with him, where potentially something on the line of 100 of the 1,000 mints would be reserved for people in the gallery, and we did like a 24-hour marathon, and every 15 minutes somebody who had an IRL ticket would mint theirs in some kind of ceremony, right, where you sort of establish your intention. Maybe the lights are dim, maybe there's a circle, or shamanic. With the CryptoVenetians, you choose your Mariano Rivera walkout song or your Metallica song, and you're cheered. But it could also be something quieter and more intimate. But the whole point here is we want that moment when you give yourself up to the generative contract in the sky to endow it with meaning, right? And
Hmm.
to feel, it's almost like having your tarot cards read,
Yeah.
right? So the more we can express some of those feelings of anxiety, of pride, of fear of not knowing which one you're going to get, it's just a lot of fun. It's more memorable.
I love it. I think it's to have that like in real life experience. I think is something special that a lot of us in our blocks, obviously, we do it from our computer in front of our screen. So I think having more of those like options is going to be something big down the road. Is this something where Bright Moments is looking to expand outside of the Venice Beach area and have locations not just like domestically in the U.S. but like around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think we spent the first 6 months building software um, that's a pain in the ass and it's not trivial, which is, Apple TV apps and iOS apps to be able to call up any NFT or create a playlist of NFTs minted on any platform to display on, in our case, Samsung screens,
Hmm.
right? So some of and everything is on chain. Even our gallerists are paid in ETH. So we're really trying to imagine this kind of hybrid of art gallery and collectible shop of the future, um, with a series of apps and software and these, collections of NFTs city by city that will allow us to expand, 5, 10 cities in the future.
Wow, that's amazing. I think yeah, I think you're onto something. I think that's amazing. You
You
know,
got to come and mint yours.
I am. I already actually have. I booked my flight. I'm going to be there in August, so I will definitely be making a trip out there and just doing a full on day trip to check it out. Uh,
Fantastic.
I'm curious. Obviously there's so many like cool things about this, but like, what are some of the challenges you face with running a gallery that is solely based off digital art? I know we were talking about it earlier before we went live. There's been a couple issues that you've had. Like, how do you can you share that with the community and like how you're expecting to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, we we haven't. So we've had the real world fraud kind of challenges that I think you have in the online world, right? Which is the first time I noticed was a couple weeks ago when two guys came in to get their crypto Venetians, and when they walked out, they were both on one guy's wallet, and the other guy walked away. I was like, oh shoot, he got paid,
Yeah.
right? Um, it happened a couple days ago where you know two guys and their mom came in to get their crypto Venetians, and next thing we know, all three of them ended up in the wallet of one guy who had three crypto Venetians, who had clearly paid them or done something. So there's edge cases like this, which are um, frustrating and exciting. I mean, no one would try to hack a system unless these things were valuable. In our case, I should sort of say that above and beyond just the novelty of getting one of 1,000 crypto Venetians, um, the plan is to drop um, value into the wallets of the holders. So for every gallery show we do, we just had a Beretta Strange Loop show. We're having an Ellie Pritz Foundation show coming up. We're doing Coldy and Bauhaus. So we've got great shows coming up every third. We have a Board Apes Yacht Club event that's going to be bonkers on Saturday.
Oh wow.
Um, but for each event that we do, we want the holders of crypto Venetians to have a unique NFT get dropped into their wallet, right?
Hmm.
Or potentially randomly they get a minting slot for Aaron Penny's show, or they get a merch drop that only goes to the 1,000 crypto Venetian holders, right? So the key is how do we think about these not just as artworks, but as again a kind of a community loyalty program that rewards people that hold on to it,
Yeah.
right? Just like, the punks, you know, gave you me bits and
Hmm.
the apes gave you the dogs. It's like each one of these collectible communities needs a roadmap and needs to do things to keep the community engaged, which in our case can also include special real world VIP access to a music club next door, right? Or discounts at the vintage store next door, right? So there's ways in which we're trying to tie this to real community value, local community value, but also for the art blocks collectors that live in Sweden and aren't going to make it to Venice, who buy one of these on the secondary market. They will also get drops of other NFTs and other tokens into their wallets, even if they're not in Venice.
That's awesome. I think what you guys are doing in Venice is incredible. Are there any other? I know you mentioned Aaron Penne's doing some. You're in talks with him. Is there anything else you wanted to kind of share as far as like upcoming events or any upcoming drops? And do you plan to I guess continue to do stuff with art blocks in the future?
Um, we got really lucky to be working with art blocks on this. And I joke that, if these were minted on any other platform, they wouldn't be nearly as in demand. So just huge appreciation to the Artblocks platform and to the community, um, and to the sanctity of this minting process in a world where everyone's trying to sort of commodify everything. The Artblocks community and the um, just the taste of it all is super impressive. Um, so at the same time, when Artblocks goes down or there's any kind of challenges in the network, we feel it very directly and vicariously because we've got, you know, 20 people waiting in the gallery. And if gas goes up, for whatever reason, it's one thing to ask someone to pay the gas for $30 or $40, but when gas hits $200 to mint a crypto Venetian, it's a much dicier subject.
Yeah.
But the answer is, come to brightmoments.io. We have um, all sorts of, events coming up every Thursday, a different art opening. Again, we hope to be, dropping these crypto New Yorkers in the fall in New York, and just continue through it. I think Aaron hopefully will be the first, but not the last of Artblocks artists that want to do something interesting that kind of blends the real world and the metaverse. Casey Reyes dropped Century
Hmm.
in the gallery
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, and we were all there on our laptops, and none of us got the drop because we hadn't turned our gas up high enough.
Oh, wow.
Um, so we want to just figure out ways, and he's going to do a processing anniversary event in a couple weeks
Oh, fantastic.
at Bright Moments as well. So we're definitely open to artists. We want any Artblocks artist who's interested in doing something that kind of fuses with the physical world. Reach out. We've got plenty of dates on the calendar that are available, and I'm just super happy to be here.
Great. Well, Seth, thanks so much for, sharing your, experience in creating, the being the co-founder for Bright Moments Gallery / DAO. And, I think, like you said earlier, I think this is something that's very special. I think it's something that's going to happen, throughout the country and around the world. And, it's cool to see some Artblocks project, CryptoVenetians at the gallery right now. And what is the last date of that? For the Crypto Venetians?
The Crypto Venetians will be fully minted by the third week of August,
Okay,
give or take.
gotcha. So we got about a
And
month of that
special
left.
thanks to Eric you connected us with Sebi, without whom none of this would have happened.
He's amazing. Yeah.
He's amazing. He helped us write the smart contract. And props to Sebi, and thank you, Eric.
Excellent.
Well, man, and thank you guys for giving us a shot at this. This has been amazing to watch, at least from my perspective too. And a lot of the last few weeks or last few months have just been they've been really heavy, but they've also been a lot of validation, right? So these crazy ideas have been literally swimming around in my head for years, and man, you really took initiative to put this together, and I just couldn't be more grateful.
Yeah, they say that technology takes longer to change than you think, but then it changes faster than you're ready for.
Yeah.
And it just feels that's what happened with NFTs. Is like we were all waiting for this moment, and then it just happened hard and fast, and it keeps going faster.
Sometimes a little too fast, I think. But yeah.
Well, thanks to Seth again for being here this evening. Next up, we want to do a giveaway for a Squiggle, but a little bit differently this time. Instead of me dropping the bot inside of the Artblock Mints channel, we're going to go ahead and try something a little different, and I'll pass it on to Snowfro with some details on that.
All right, so yeah, so we're going to do a trivia thing today, and the trivia is going to be probably for some people that are around pretty early in Artblock. So I guess whoever types in the answer first will win the Squiggle tonight. So yeah, if y'all are ready. Yep, looks like people are ready. Okay, so in our second drop was a total shit show. The servers basically burned down, and everything was a complete mess. And something magical happened in the community where we were able to prove that people's art was theirs, even though our entire platform fell apart. for about 3 hours. And so I guess my question is, if anybody remembers what it was that happened that day within the community at the time of the drop that allowed us to prove that, you know, your art is safe, your art is Sefu.
It's going pretty fast. Did you see the answer?
Yeah, it's not a drop. It's something that happened that was pretty special. But I don't know. A lot of guys may not have been around. User minted number 0. No. Oh, there's a delay. Yeah. Ether scan. Okay, maybe I should do it. Oh, that's it. PXQL. You nailed it.
I can't even see what
you went. So basically, Jeff posted the script that came from the blockchain onto open processing and gave instructions to people how to pull their their token hash from Etherscan and view their artwork on open processing. And even though art blocks had been completely, you know, crippled by the rendering, everybody that was there, if they wanted to, you know, see their stuff right away, of course they could have waited, was given a link to an open processing sketch where they could type in, like, paste their hash in and see their art. And I think that, I was literally like sweating during this and freaking out because I also didn't expect the drop to go the way that it did. But I think it was one of those things that kind of put art blocks very distinct from everything else kind of happening in the crypto art space, because in our second drop, literally we found out that, or proved indirectly, that, you know, your art is your art on art blocks. You know, outside of maybe the P5JS dependency, which is probably more decentralized than Ethereum, you know, your art is your art. And if the server goes down, if our platform goes down, as long as somebody, you know, can assemble a basic HTML template, which is pretty straightforward, you know, your stuff is still good. So I thought that was this pretty special moment to me that I was thinking about on my flight yesterday, and so I figured that was the trivia. So congrats, PXQL. I'm excited to give you another squiggle. It's been a while. Yeah, it does feel like yesterday. Cool. Okay, so I need your ETH address that you want this sent to. So, yes. All right, here he comes. Woohoo!
Wow, the one from last week is actually really cool. I'm looking at it right now. The mint from last week.
Yeah, it was super humpy.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, let's see if this works for the first time here. Oh, why is gas limit low? Let's change that. Oh man, I put it in at like what it suggested gas could be a little bit. Maybe I should speed it up. Oh wow, that was fast. Holy crap.
Did it come through? I haven't seen it yet.
I don't see it on the website.
Weird. Must be loading up a hyper.
Yeah, right?
Hypervolt.
That's weird. My computer is kind of struggling pretty hard right now. I wonder what's. Let's see. See it come through.
There we go. Oh, nice. Slinky.
All right. Wait, where did you see it, by the way?
Oh, Luke had it. He was refreshing the page.
Oh, nice.
He's gonna load it up right now, and it'll show up on the Discord in a second.
Sweet.
Give us 1 second. We'll load that up.
Oh,
There you
it
go.
is.
You see it right there? That's a
Still
nice
rendering.
one.
Oh, that is.
There you go. Drew had posted it also inside the Discord.
There we go. Whoa, that is pretty crazy looking. Man, they've
That's
been
a nice
getting
one.
really stretched out lately.
I feel like it's just getting crazier and crazier. The next one's gonna be something wild.
You know we're gonna see something crazy around here sometime.
Yeah,
It's gonna be wild.
absolutely. Well, now we gave out the the Squiggle giveaway. Do you have any news or notes for anyone in the community, Snowfro?
Oh, well, we'll be making some pretty big announcement tomorrow, including our next curated artist, which we're pretty excited to announce. Some changes for minting mechanics that we feel are inevitable, and we're gonna see what happens this week. So I'm looking forward to not sending any money to miners that doesn't need to get there. And besides that, looking forward to another week at Art Blocks. So thank you for hosting it once again, Masood.
Awesome.
And Luke, thank you for everything that you do.
Says thank you. You're welcome.
Jess, Seth, thank you guys so much for coming. It's really amazing to have you guys on here.
Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, for being on tonight. It's been another great episode of After Dinner Mints. So next week we're gonna have Von Misses on, who is a huge Art Blocks collector, as well as Raster Eyes, who is on the Art Blocks curation board. Besides that, on the right side of the screen, you'll see the Discord channel, which is always busy. I highly recommend anyone that's in the community check out the description of this YouTube page and visit us on Discord. If you're an artist, collector, you're just interested in Art Blocks, any of that, just jump in. We'll help you out, point you in the right direction. Besides that, comment, like, subscribe to the Art Blocks YouTube channel so you don't miss another episode. Be excellent to each other, and we will see everyone next week. See y'all.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Take
Thanks,
care.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good week.